if we had a perfect switch in our body that told us, you're feeling full, stop eating now, it shouldn't matter how much food's on the plate because you're full and you just stop eating. I'll talk about two simple concepts first, and we progressively complicate this. So the first is portion size. If you present people with a larger portion, they eat more food. Now, it sounds obvious, right? But that's telling us something really important. What it's telling us is the things that are controlling appetite are outside of us. Do you mean if we had a perfect switch in our body that told us, you're feeling full, stop eating now, it shouldn't matter how much food's on the plate because you're full and you just stop eating. My kids do it. My kids are sort of 2 and 7, and they'll stop eating, say, I'm feeling full. They won't. As adults, we don't seem to do that. So if we are presented with a bigger portion, you find that people eat more. What you also find is people, if you ask people on a scale of 1 to 100 how big the meal is, you kind of say 100 is the biggest meal you've ever eaten, 100. People recognize it's bigger, so they'll score it higher. So they know it's a bigger meal. It's not that they're not aware it's a bigger meal, but they still eat more food. Now, the really intriguing thing is Barbara Rolls and colleagues did a study a few years ago, really neat study, where what she did is she got people to eat all their meals essentially in a cafeteria for 11 days, twice. And on one occasion, random order, on one occasion, she gave everybody normal sized portions. And then on the other occasion, she gave them portions that are 50% bigger, right? So they come in 11 days in a row. And what you find is if you feed people bigger portions, day on day on day on day on day, they eat more food. So it isn't like, oh gosh, I had loads yesterday, I'm absolutely stuffed, I'm going to eat less. They don't. So when people are presented with more food, and that's one of the things people are talking about in the society today, the portions are bigger. It's changing a little bit now with shrinkflation, I guess. But until the last couple of years, it was that people eat more if they're presented more food. So that's one thing. The second thing that I think is quite important is this concept of energy density of food. So energy density is the number of calories per gram or number of calories per 100 grams of food. So for example, if you take a cucumber, right, 100 grams of cucumber has about 15 calories. So not very many. Whereas 100 grams of chocolate chip cookies has about 450, right? So 100 grams of cucumber has very fewer calories. And what you find is if you give people foods which have a higher energy density, so you give them a big bowl of cookies versus a big bowl of cucumbers, this isn't quite right, but you broadly eat to the same weight of food. It's not quite right, but as a first approximation, right? So that weight of cucumber versus the weight of cookies is very different. So you eat many more cookies. So these two things about energy density and portion size are really important, and I think that has an effect.